Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Kitchen Design Experts, the channel that tells you everything you need to know about kitchens, bedrooms and home offices. Now today, are you going to put your hob on an island or a peninsular unit? And if so, what's the best extraction to use?
Well, we're going to tell you. This is a follow-on video from the video we've previously done on induction hobs. Now if you don't want to miss that video or any future video we do, please do consider subscribing and hitting that little bell icon.
Now then, both islands and peninsulars can be fantastic design features within a fitted kitchen, and there can be some very valid practical and aesthetic reasons for including these in your kitchen design.
And sometimes it can make complete sense to add your hob on one of these islands or peninsulas.
Right then, look at this plan here. Now this shows a kitchen we did where a wall had been removed here to create an open plan family kitchen. Now the client wanted a waist height oven and a tall fridge freezer. And as you can see, there was really only one place that these two tall houses could go. Yes, here. Now we could have tried to squeeze the hob in here, but the worktop space available each side of the hob would have been restricted. If you've watched any of our previous design videos, you will have heard us harping on about prep space around and between the hob and sink. So we don't really want to put the hob here, do we?
In this case, it makes sense to put the hob on the peninsula here. Whippy! Problem solved, or is it? What about the extraction?
Up until recently, this has caused us quite a few problems. There are solutions to the problems, but none of them are wholly satisfactory. Now, before we start to talk about the latest innovations in hob extraction, I'd just like to talk about the three other methods that we've used over the years, because it's worthwhile doing this. They are still available, widely used, and they could be the right thing for you.
Firstly, we have the island canopy, and this would hang down from the ceiling above your island, of which we'll show you a couple now. Now, as you can see, some of these are quite bulky, and that's because if you want them to be vented outside, they have to have a substantial chimney structure that would hang down from the ceiling.
Now, at this point, it's worth pointing out that although recirculatory cooker hoods can be very effective, if you can duct it to the outside, generally it is always better to do this. It's also worth pointing out that if you are going to duct it, you must use the right size of ducting as recommended by the manufacturer. If you use ducting that's a little bit too small, your cooker hood's going to sound like a jumbo jet taking off every time you use it. And whilst we're talking about noise, with some of these hoods, you can actually use what we call a remote fan, so the noise is not coming directly from your cooker hood. Discuss this with your kitchen designer.
Sorry, we've digressed a little, so back to island canopy hoods. So what are the problems? Well, sometimes it can be both practical and visual problems. For example, if you're wanting to create this nice open space in your kitchen and keep everything free, then you're going to put this big bulky thing smack bang in the middle. Can possibly make it a little less open.
As you can see, it does dominate somewhat. The client wanted to remove the wall to open up the kitchen to a living area, but with this hood you've almost reintroduced the wall. It is psychologically, if not physically, splitting the room back into two areas. If you're stood at the hob and you want to converse with somebody in the sitting area, you've got to bend down to see them. Not good, really.
However, that's not to say you should never have this type of hood, because for example, if you wanted that industrial style, of which this would suit then, or you've got quite a vast room with tall ceilings where it wouldn't impact the room that much, this hood could still be perfect for you. So, moving on, downdraft extractors. Now, these are the ones that sit just behind the hob and at the push of a button, rise up, as you can see here.
Now these do work, and in some cases can actually still be ducted to the outside. So what's the problem with them, I hear you ask?
Well, as you can see, they do look quite nice when they're flush to the worktop, but in order to do that, you do take up both valuable worktop space and, more importantly, you need to have some form of void underneath, which then would take up valuable cupboard space.
Now, when they actually rise up out of the worktop, quite frankly, I don't think that that's attractive. They're not as bad as the type of hood we've talked about before, the extractor canopy that hangs down in your face. They're just below your face, basically. But from the other side of the room, I don't think they look fantastic. Now what we're going to do now is superimpose this type of hood back onto that CAD drawing.
Here you can see the hood in its down position, and here you can see it when it's being used. Not so good. What's more, we've had the feedback from clients that they tend to leave it up rather than waiting for it to rise and fall each time they want to use them. So they tend to be more of a permanent feature, albeit a rather non-attractive one. We have also had the feedback that the effectiveness of the extraction from the front burners isn't the best.
Okay, let's look at ceiling mounted cooker hoods. Here's an example of one. Now, out of the three that we've been talking about, this is possibly our preference when we're designing extraction over an island or a peninsula. Generally, these hoods can still be vented to the outside, between the joists that are within the ceiling. But before you design one of these into your kitchen, just check which way those joists are running first.
Now, when you see a picture of this particular type of extractor, you'll notice that most of them show the extractor pretty much flush with the ceiling. Now, unfortunately, that's not usually possible because, like Robin mentioned, above that ceiling, you've got these wooden joists. Now, they might be supporting a bedroom above your kitchen, and they usually have between 450 to 500mm space between each joist, and unfortunately, that's not enough space to fit that extractor into.
So, unless you're prepared to take the ceiling down and reconfigure those joists, your cooker hood is going to hang down because it's about 300mm tall, and therefore you're going to have to build some sort of box structure to put the cooker hood into.
Now, you may have a very tall ceiling, so in that case, yes, you might be able to afford to bring that ceiling down 300mm, in which case you could then have that completely flush look. But back to these box structures, you could just simply build a square box like shown in this CAD drawing.
Now you can see that although it doesn't dominate as much as the canopy hood, it still doesn't look wonderful, and it really draws your eye to that extractor fan. So you can try and be a little bit more innovative with the box. If you split it to two sections, as per this drawing, it can disguise the height of the box and looks much better than the previous box. We also try to make more of this box and make it bigger than is actually needed. We make a feature out of it, as in this drawing, where we've actually run the box through to the wall so it looks more structural rather than false. And you can then maybe even set some LED lights into the extended portion, or maybe some drop pendants.
So I think you can see from the CAD impressions why this has been our preferred version of extractor for islands and peninsulas.
So, on to the main event, self-venting hobs. It's worth pointing out at this juncture that the hob we're describing is a Bosch hob. That's because we actually are a Bosch expert centre. So you need to know that some of the features I'll be describing may differ from different manufacturers.
Now, these types of extractor slash hobs have been around for quite a while, but they've really been only available in these specialist manufacturers, and by specialist I mean expensive. Bora, for example, are possibly one of these manufacturers, although I must say the feedback that we get from selling these has been amazing.
I'm pleased to announce though that this type of hob is now going to become more widely available from the mainstream suppliers, such as Bosch and Neff.
And these hobs are really only available as induction hobs, but don't worry, if you watched our previous video on induction hobs, you'd realise that that really is the type of hob that you actually want.
Okay, here you can see one of these self-venting hobs in action, and you can see all the steam going down to that central location. Now, this particular Bosch hob is a PXX875D67E, if you're interested. And looking around on the internet, the sort of cost for one of these machines, approximately £2,600. This model, as you can see, has flex induction zones each side of the extractor fan. And if you want to know more about flex induction, please see our previous video that we've done. And also you can see that underneath the hob you still have facility to put drawers in there of varying widths. They've now moved on to a different 70cm wide hob here. And basically the function just the same. The 80cm wide and the 70cm wide have similar functions. So basically that's it. That's what one of these looks like. You can see it working there from not just a frying pan but also a taller pan with the broccoli in there. And I hope you've now got a much better idea of what a self-venting hob looks like and what it's like in action.
Okay, let's get back to the CAD design. Here you can see that not having an extractor either hanging down or rising up visually achieves what most people want when knocking down a wall. A completely open plan look with no eye height delineation between kitchen and living areas.
The self-venting hob can be ducted to the outside, which is still our preferred method, or it can be recirculatory, and in some cases there are up to 3 different ways it can be recirculated. And here's a diagram showing you those ways. But please remember this diagram refers to a Bosch hob only.
And out of these 3 recirculatory systems, we prefer the full recirculatory system. And that's because the hob will have venting going out the back of the cupboard, down the back of the cupboard, underneath the cupboard, and then out through the plinth. So, as you may have gathered, we're actually very keen on this method of extraction. In fact, we think that over the next 10 years, it's going to become the go-to cooking appliance, and even become more commonplace, like how the dishwasher did in the 80s.
Now this has really just been an introduction video for you about self-venting hobs, and we've actually only just scratched the surface. There's a lot more to talk about. But if you've got any questions at all, you know exactly what to do. Just bang them in the comments box below and we absolutely promise to get back to you. We hope you found this useful, and all I can say now is it's goodbye from him
And it's goodbye from us.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Substantial chimney structure. I don't know why I feel like I'm going to struggle with substantial chimney structure. You set me up there. And you're going to put something quite bulky smack bang in the middle of it. It can possibly make that less open and less happy. Less happy.
Happy?
So I think you can see from the CAD impressions why this has been our preferred version of Shit.
So, on to the main event. So, where are you looking?
Oh, sorry. Camera.
And I've completely forgotten what I'm supposed to be saying next.